I'm Mr. Jackson's and Chief Meteorologist David Heckard. Well, you may have seen in social media the last couple of days about a possible system getting going in the Gulf of Mexico as we move later on in the week. And it is true we're going to see an area of circulation develop, but the likelihood of this becoming a tropical system is actually on the low side, but it does have a couple of things actually going for it. And let's kind of talk about what we think is going to happen later on in the week. So first off, one of the big changes is we're going to see a big dip in the jet stream. For much of the winter months, the jet stream has been doing something like this across the country. Heading into the middle part of the week, we're going to see this enormous dip in the jet stream over the Gulf of Mexico. And oftentimes when we see dips like this, that's an indication of a surface low that's going to attempt to develop. And we feel very confident we are going to see a surface low develop in the northern Gulf Coast area. Anytime you see a surface low develop over water, it gets your attention. But normally we're not too worried about this in the month of April and even May because the waters just aren't that warm and the atmosphere isn't necessarily conducive for development. This time's a little bit different because of the fact that it is going to be lifting its way very slowly northward. So it's going to be over water for a little bit. And we also think it's going to be a developing system that actually has a warm front and a cold front with it. So regardless of development, we do think this warm front will lift into Florida later on in the week, and that will provide likely some rainfall to southeast Georgia and North Florida. So one thing that this system has going for it is abnormally warm water. Now this is a water temperature anomaly graphic, and you can see this area of orange right here. That's showing much of the Gulf of Mexico is actually considered above average in water temperature. Now, the waters off the Gulf of Mexico are not scorching hot, so we're not going to be talking about anything rapidly developing. However, they are warm enough to potentially allow something to develop, especially in the central and northern Gulf. The reason we're not too optimistic about this system developing is it's going to quickly, it looks like, move its way northward into parts of Louisiana, Mississippi. It probably just isn't over water long enough to actually be able to organize and consolidate into a subtropical or tropical system. But we have seen systems in the past in the month of April, but it doesn't happen that often. In fact, the most recent one was Arlene back in 2017. It impacted portions of the open waters of the Atlantic. Anna in 2003 formed off the U.S. East Coast and did actually cause some issues in Bermuda. Other systems include subtropical storm number 1, and we actually had 2 tropical depressions in April back in 1973. So we think the bigger issue here in southeast Georgia, northeast Florida may be the rainfall. In fact, it's going to be kind of a wet week across the area. You can see our rainfall totals through the weekend indicating about a ½ inch plus across much of this region. But notice how the slightly higher rainfall totals are along the Gulf Coast region back through the Panhandle. That's where they're going to be a little bit closer to the surface low. In fact, we cannot rule out the possibility of some flooding issues in sections of Louisiana and Mississippi as they're right over the center of that circulation as it's lifted northward into the area. So bottom line here, it's one we'll keep an eye on in the Weather Center, but at this point, a pretty low chance is going to become a subtropical or tropical system. It is an indication, though, that we're getting a little bit closer to the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. I'm Assistant Chief Meteorologist David Heckard for Channel 4, the local station.